Hey, how you doing, YouTube? This is your boy Brogi Naric, back again with another episode. Well, not another episode, I guess I could say. It used to be called Rumor Gallery. I changed the name of it. It's now going to be called the Ponder Playhouse. And on videos like this, it's going to be me and sometimes a guest. I'll give an idea or my pitch of what a movie or a TV show or even a video game could potentially be. And in this video, I'm going to be giving my casting choices for who should be the X-Men in the upcoming MCU X-Men movies or Mutants movies or whatever they're going to call it. And not only am I going to cast the X-Men, I'm also going to kind of give, I'm going to do 3 movies or potentially 4. And I'm going to give not only the casting choices, but I'm also going to give some potential storyline ideas that I would, if I were making the X-Men movies, I would probably do. And so that's basically what this movie is going to be. There's going to be some timestamps if you just want to skip to see certain casting choices. I'm going to start this episode off with my first X-Men movie, and I'm going to call it X-Men Inferno. Now, this is kind of how I would start the movie out a little bit. It can change because how do you introduce the X-Men into the MCU? It's been going for it's been going for about a decade now, and then all of a sudden mutants are going to pop up. So I don't really have a great idea of how they're going to introduce mutants. So my idea is that the X-Men have been secretly operating for a few years. That could be the 5-year gap between the snap or the blip, but they've been operating in secret for a few years. And the original first class team has disbanded. The original team being Cyclops, Jean, Iceman, Beast, and Storm has disbanded, but a new team has formed. And a mysterious enemy, who would in this movie be Mr. Sinister, appears planning to unleash a biological chemical attack that will forcibly activate X genes or the mutant gene and kills those who aren't mutants. So the X-Men have to stop Mr. Sinister from unleashing this biological weapon that would forcibly turn people into mutants and kill those who aren't. It's somewhat similar to the first X-Men movie with Magneto and his machine, but you know, that's kind of how some of these movies tend to be. They recycle what was done, but also change it. So for the first movie, I'm going to do something somewhat similar to the first, but different as well. So now I'm going to get into some of the cast for this first X-Men movie, starting with Professor X. My casting choice for Professor X is Ralph Fiennes, or Ralph Fiennes. You know him as Lord Voldemort from the Harry Potter movies, and he's been in other movies. I think most people who I've seen cast Professor X have chosen him, and I think he's a good choice, although I would prefer him to use an American accent as opposed to his British accent, because if you don't know, Professor X isn't British, but he is in the movies because Patrick Stewart is awesome. But he would be my easy choice for Professor X. My next casting choice would be the leader of the X-Men team, Cyclops, who I have Armie Hammer as my choice for Cyclops, and I think I've seen some people pick him as well. He's a really good actor, whether you know it or not. I've seen a couple of earlier movies where he's not that good, but some of his later movies I've seen, like Sorry to Bother You and Birth of a Nation. He's a really good actor, and he's 6'5", which if you don't know the comics, Cyclops is a tall guy, and he can play the Boy Scout, but he can also play intense and a cocky jerk, which Cyclops is cocky. Like, he's not just all around nice guy all the time. And this movie would focus on his backstory a little bit, and his and Jean Grey's relationship, which is, well, start off as friendship, and then we would build into the relationship as opposed to them just already being a couple, to build some emotional connection to these two characters. Next I have Beast, played by Seth Gable, who you might recognize from, I mainly remember him from the show Fringe. He was also on, if you watch Arrow, he played the first Count's Vertigo. He's a really good actor. He can play the nerdy guy. He's gotten a little bit bigger since then, because he used to be a thin guy. He's gotten a little size to him, but you can also use practical effects. I prefer practical effects for Beast, just like they did with Kelsey Grammer, to pull off his look, but also use CGI for when he's jumping around. Next I have Jean Grey, played by Rose Leslie from Game of Thrones. Now, I have not watched Game of Thrones. The reason I picked her, I was searching when I did my other video, which was the Ghostbusters 3. I was searching European actresses of a certain age range, and she popped up. I saw some clips of her. She seems like she's a capable actress, and I think she can pull off Jean Grey. And also, yes, she does have natural red hair. With Jean in this movie, she would have one of the ones that left the team. Cyclops was the only one who stuck around, and she's manipulated by Mr. Sinister's trickery to eventually come back to the X-Men team. So she's led back to the team, and eventually her and Scott are together, and Mr. Sinister ends up kidnapping the two of them because if you know Mr. Sinister, he's always obsessed with Jean and Scott. They're kind of like his Adam and Eve. He does weird things with genetics, and he would use something with their genetics to help be the final ingredient to his chemical warfare that he's going to unleash. And also with Jean Grey, I would like them to use, I would hope they would use the Scarlet Witch. You know how she does that red energy, but do it with Jean, but it's like pink, as a way to display her powers. It would be much more visually effective than her just standing on screen like this or making weird faces. Check out Dark Phoenix so you know what I'm talking about. Next would be Storm. Now this is a big one. I'm not familiar with this actress, but I saw this fan cast on Instagram and I looked her up and I was immediately like okay with it. Her name is Yetide Badaki, I believe that's how you can say it. She's on This Is Us and American Gods, where she plays a goddess on American Gods. She's of Nigerian descent, and she looks like a goddess. She's a beautiful woman. And in this movies, we would have a really good Storm. She would be a tough, badass, no nonsense. Well, like tough, better than what she was in the Fox movies. And in this movie, I would have Storm actually lead the team once Scott and Jean have been kidnapped. She leads the team to try to go save Scott and Jean. Next is Nightcrawler, who I have played by Alfie Allen, who is another Game of Thrones character. He was on Game of Thrones, and I'm not familiar with most of his acting. I looked some clips up of him acting. The main reason I chose him for Nightcrawler is because he has a very he fits the height requirement. Like he's average height guy, but he also has this interesting look, which I would want to come through the makeup, which is one of the reasons why I like the kid in Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, because he had an interesting look that came through when they added the makeup to him. So that's the main reason why I chose him. Another teammate, oh, this is a pretty good sized team, trust me. The next teammate I have is Gambit, who I have Decray Montgomery playing him. Now, Decray Montgomery, he's an Australian-Canadian actor. You might recognize him as the douchebag on Stranger Things. He was also Jason in the Power Rangers movie. Now, originally, I was thinking he would be my Wolverine, but my main problem with him being Wolverine is just he's too young. And so he could totally be a younger Gambit. He definitely has the heartthrob look. He can play cocky. He can play douchebag, but he can also be charming. The only thing that might hurt him is the Louisiana, the Cajun accent, but no one really does a good Cajun accent, so he'll be fine. I think he'll be great for Gambit. And the last X-Men member I have in this movie would be Forge, and I would have Justin Rain play him. He's a Native American actor. He's Canadian. And the thing about the reason I have Forge on this team is because in the MCU teams need a tech guy. You know, the Avengers, they have Iron Man, Guardians got Rocket, and what's another team? I can't think of another team. But in this world, very tech savvy. Even Spider-Man is way more tech savvy in these movies than what he's used to be portrayed as. So every superhero team needs a tech guy. Forge is Forge and Beast, but mostly it's a combination between Forge and Beast, but like if we're talking tech, it's Forge. So that's why I would have Forge be in this movie, and we can also hint to Forge and Storm having a little bit of a relationship, which of course doesn't work out because Storm will later be with Black Panther, but that's the X-Men team I have for the first movie. As for the villain, Mr. Sinister, my choice is Luke Evans to play Mr. Sinister. You might recognize him from, he was in the Beauty and the Beast live action movie. He played Gaston. I've seen him in certain things, and he's a really good actor, and I think he could get into that role. He'd be fine with the makeup, and like I said, Mr. Sinister's obsessed with Scott and Jean, and he wants to experiment on them to create his biological weapon, And other villains that would appear in this movie would be his team, the Nasty Boys, which is basically a group of mutants that are like his minions, so like his own personal Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. I would have them appear to take on the other X-Men. And another sort of antagonist that would be in this movie would be Senator Kelly. Don't have a casting choice for Senator Kelly, but there are numerous character actors you can get to play Senator Kelly. Nothing really came to my mind, but that would be a general idea of my first X-Men movie. The second X-Men movie I have would be called X-Men Endangered Species. And basically the synopsis of this movie is due to the previous biological threat, Sentinels are unleashed on mutant kind. Magneto rallies a brotherhood of mutants to destroy the unsanctioned Sentinel program. Jubilee gets caught in the crossfire of the Sentinel attack. She's saved by the X-Men. Members on both sides are conflicted on how they should deal with the Sentinels. And then Gambit gets captured by the government, is freed by the Brotherhood, still held captive by them. He convinces Rogue to turn on Magneto. The X-Men stop Magneto, but not without straining human and mutant relations. So, that's the general synopsis of what this movie would be about. Now, certain things, Storm is not in this movie because she would be dealing with Black Panther. And I would have Beast not in this movie either because by this time, Beast is a member of the Avengers, which Beast was a member of the Avengers back in the day. He has a long history with that team. So both Beast and Storm are not on this team, which means X-Men gets new members added. So, new characters. I'm going to start with the bad guys. For Magneto, I have Clive Owen as my choice to play Magneto. He's a great actor. He can be very intense yet reserved. And I think he can bring a certain gravitas to the character, much like what Fassbender did. I think Clive Owen can do a German act. Is Magneto German? Well, it's not really German. He can do, he can do European accents, and I think he's in a certain age range. That's the problem with Magneto's character, is his character is so tied to the Holocaust, and for him to actually be a survivor of the Holocaust and then be alive in 2019, the man would have to be in his 90s. So I don't know how they're going to do that. That's one of the things they're talking about, probably getting a black actor to play him. I would be fine with, I would prefer an actor that could play Magneto but still have connections to the Holocaust background. So I don't know how they're going to pull that off. I'd be fine with a black actor playing Professor X because his heritage doesn't really make that much into his character, control his character. But with Magneto, him being Jewish is a big part of his character. So I don't know how they're going to work around that. Next, for the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, I'm not going to cast everyone, but my team would consist of Mystique, Sabretooth, Toad, Avalanche, Rogue, the Blob, and Mastermind. Now, for Mystique, I have Sophia Boutella, who you might recognize from, she played the Mummy. She was in Kingsman. She was the chick on it with the blades. Sophia Boutella she's a good actress, but she excels in action scenes and playing the femme fatale, which is what Mystique is, a femme fatale. And also, Sophia Boutella is not afraid to wear makeup, unlike Jennifer Lawrence, because she wore makeup in the Star Trek Beyond movie. She played a character that was in all makeup, so she has the look, she has the capability, she can do the physicality, and she's not afraid to wear makeup. I think she would be a great choice for Mystique. Now, the next member on the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants would be Rogue, and my choice for Rogue is Julia Garner, who you may remember. She's on some show on, I think on Freeform, but she's also on Ozark. She plays Ruth on Ozark. I chose her mainly because, well, she can play tough, and she's a good actress. She can do a southern accent. In that show, she kind of does like a it's like Missouri, but she can change it to Mississippi. She can do a good southern accent as well. She can also be sassy and very tough, and sort of conniving but vulnerable at the same time. One thing, she is kind of small. She would need to bulk up, but there's newer versions of, because like if you know Rogue from the 90s, she is like a very like muscular type of chick, but then there are other versions later on where she's more of a normal sized woman, so you can pull this off with the character. And in this movie, I would have it where she could fly and has super strength. Now they could just make her fly and have super strength, or they can, if I was doing it, I would allude to maybe in Captain Marvel 2, Mystique and Rogue attack Captain Marvel and depower her or a little bit, and that's how Rogue can now fly and have super strength. But I would want that connection of Rogue and Mystique and their involvement with Captain Marvel. If I was doing it, that's how I would do it. But yes, in this movie, she can fly and have super strength, but also uh, she's tortured by her actions. She doesn't. She's still being manipulated by Mystique to be bad, and she's also kind of wishy-washy on should she continue doing this. The next member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants I have is Sabretooth, who I would have played by Pablo Schreiber, who is the stepbrother of Liev Schreiber, who played him in X-Men Origins. And the reason I chose him is he's also on American Gods, and I believe Orange is the New Black. He plays like a security guard on Orange is the New Black. And basically on New Gods, he kind of plays like a tall Wolverine already. He's this big, I think he's like, he's supposed to be like a leprechaun, but he's like a big leprechaun guy. And he can be intense, he can be scary, and his, like I said, his height plays into it. And he can be intense. He can be intense. He's got a scary look. I think he can pull it off. You don't have to go too deep into Sabretooth, but I do want someone who's got the physical stature to play him. And another villain, of course, that would be in this movie involving Sentinels would be Bolivar Trask. I don't have an actor for him, but I mean, like I said, a number of character actors can play that character. It's not that important. And for the new X-Men, I have Jubilee, who I don't have a choice for her. She's going to be vacant because the person I wanted to pick was already wasted in the Apocalypse movie. So I don't think they're going to bring that woman back. So for right now, Jubilee is vacant, but Jubilee would be a big part of this movie. This movie would basically be a combination of X-Men versus the Brotherhood of Mutants and that episode of the X-Men cartoon, Night of the Sentinels, where Jubilee is attacked and she joins up with the X-Men. The movie would be kind of like a little bit of that. And, or at least that was my inspiration for coming up with this movie. The next new mutant that would be on the X-Men side would be Colossus, who I would have Florian Montagu, who played not Creed. He was in Creed 2. He played Ivan Drago's son. He would be my choice for Colossus. He did really good in that movie for the limited amount that he had. He is I think he's Ukrainian, but he's a big guy, and I think he can pull off Colossus. But I also do sort of the Deadpool method where when he's Colossus, he's like full-on CGI character, but I would have Florian do the CGI and do the motion capture and the voice, and he would be about the same, but just not as much of a goody two-shoe Boy Scout like he was in Deadpool. Now, one of the big casting choices, which I'm very proud of this one, my choice for the Wolverine, Logan James Howlett himself in the MCU would be Ben Foster. Now, you might be thinking, why the hell would it be Ben Foster? Ben Foster, yes, he already appeared as the Angel in X-Men 3, but Ben Foster is a really good actor. Another one, I saw his movie, Hell or High Water. I think it's still on Netflix, where he plays a nutcase, basically. He's like a thieving, sort of feral nutcase. There's a moment where he's shooting a bunch of people, and he was scary. And Ben Foster has the right look. He has that rugged handsomeness because he's not an ugly guy. Because I mean, like I said, look at him when he was Angel a couple of years ago. He's ruggedly handsome. He's stocky build, but he's not short. But he's like what 5'9". He's a smaller guy, especially compared to someone like Armie Hammer, who I have as Cyclops, who is 6'5". He can be very intense, and like I said, the man can act. And I think he'd be a great choice. A lot of people are picking younger actors, like way too young, like Taron Egerton, and for some reason Daniel Radcliffe to play Wolverine. And I'm fine with Taron Egerton, but it's like he's too young. And I think Ben Foster is of a great age to even age more into that character. And like I said, I want a smaller guy as compared to a taller guy like they got with Hugh Jackman. Another way to differentiate his Wolverine. So Ben Foster is my choice for the Wolverine. Now to get into the third X-Men movie, which would be called X-Men: The Phoenix Saga. Yes, we're going to kind of go there. but it's gonna be like classic MCU. You're gonna use a famous title, but the story is gonna be a little bit different. So in this movie, during a mission in space on the Sword satellite, which Sword is basically Shield in space, which I'm assuming, if spoilers for Captain Marvel, but that place where not Jack Nicholson, Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury is hanging out in. I'm assuming that's supposed to be Sword. So I'm gonna have it where their satellite is in danger, and the X-Men go up there to try to help them. Why not the Avengers? Well, let's say they're doing something else. Why not the Fantastic Four? Let's say they're doing something else. Jean Grey ends up sacrificing herself on the satellite to save the team, and she's dead. Jean Grey is dead. This is like early part of the movie, somewhat like Dr. Phoenix movie, but she's gone. Past X-Men return to mourn her death and to track down those who are responsible for the satellite attack, which would be Eric the Red, who would be one of the villains in this movie. So through their investigation, the X-Men find out that Shi'ar Emperor the Kin launched the attack in search of the M'Kraan crystal to take over the universe. His sister, she's not an empress at this point, so Lilandra Normani and the Starjammers arrive on Earth asking the X-Men for help due to the Phoenix Force being somewhere on the planet. They don't know where it is, but it's drawing them to the planet, and you can do the whole thing with Professor X is having the nightmares of some perceived alien invasion coming. So they go out into space, and during a battle with the Imperial Guard, a resurrected Jean Grey comes back as the Phoenix Force, and she arrives to save the team. The X-Men regroup with the Phoenix and Sword on their side to lead to a battle stopping evil Emperor the Kin. They save the M'Kraan crystal, and that's will basically be the synopsis of this movie. So certain new characters we'll see. We'll see some of the other X-Men. Casting wise, I have Iceman. For Iceman, this might be a little tough for some people, but I have Tyler James Williams, who will play Bobby Drake Iceman. And yes, I race bended the character because it's gonna happen. Get over it. So I at least chose someone, a character whose race is not that important to his background. Because with some of these X-Men characters, that is important to their background because they are from different parts of the world. But with Iceman, he's from like not Chicago. I forget where he's. He's either from Boston or New York. So I got Everybody Hates Chris as Iceman because he can be funny and cocky, and he's of the age to play. Like he was much younger at the time, so he's like now aged into his character. And the next character that we will see in this movie would be Angel, who I have Henry Golding. Yeah, Henry Golden from Crazy Rich Asians to play Angel because Angel is a handsome rich guy who's a billionaire, and Henry Golding is a handsome rich guy who's a capable actor, and that's all you really need for Angel. I'm not going to get too deep into the whole apocalypse thing, so he's going to be just regular Angel minus the blue skin and all of that. For Lilandra, I'm not going to bother with her last name. For Lilandra, I have Janelle Monáe as Lilandra. And the reason I chose her is because she has a distinctive look, and Lilandra has a distinctive look, and she's supposed to be very strikingly beautiful when you see her, which Janelle Monáe falls into both of those categories. And also, I can buy Janelle Monáe as an alien queen. So, and she's a good actress too. So that would be my choice for Lilandra. It's gonna be hopefully her and Ralph Fiennes will have chemistry, but this is all make believe. But she would be my choice for Lilandra. And by having Sword in this movie, hopefully by this time, or even in this movie, the X-Men would be introduced to the character Abigail Brand, who was the leader of Sword for a while. Maybe Nick Fury has retired, or he's put someone else in his place. And Abigail Brand is a cool character, and she has her connections to the X-Men, so you can build off of that as well. And for Emperor the Kin, the evil bad guy who is Lilandra's brother, I'm going to go with Lance Reddick. This was a last-minute choice, but I'm going with Lance Reddick to play that character. So yeah, Lance Reddick, awesome actor. I think you might know him mostly for the John Wick movies. He was also on Fringe. Love that actor, and he can pull off evil bad guy Emperor. So he's my Kin. And then you would have the Imperial Guard as fodder, and later good guys in the movie as well. Here we go, the last movie, the fourth X-Men movie I have here, which of course you know what this is going to be. It's X-Men versus Avengers. And basically this movie would be basically the Dark Phoenix saga with the X-Men versus Avengers storyline kind of mesh together. At least that's kind of how I'm thinking about it in my head. So with this, we would have the Hellfire Club. Now I would have the Hellfire Club appear in a different movie. I don't know what that movie would be, but I wouldn't want the Hellfire Club to pop up out of nowhere. I would want them to kind of be hinted at, or make their presence somewhat known in a different movie, and then fully appear on in this movie. And so now, and I'm going to go into some of my casting choices for the Hellfire Club. So for Sebastian Shaw, I have Toby Stevens, who you might know as he was the bad guy in James Bond: Die Another Day, and he was also on the new Netflix Lost in Space show. And he can play a cocky guy, he can play stuck up, and one of the main reasons why I chose him, he's also a British actor, I believe, or European actor, but he looks great in old-timey clothing, and like that sort of 1700s, 1800s clothing. He looks great in that, and I want the Hellfire Club to be dressed like those kinky weirdos from the 1700s, like they're supposed to be. So and he's got size on him too, so he would be my Sebastian Shaw. Now for Emma Frost, my choice for Emma Frost is Betty Gilpin, who you may know from the show Glow on Netflix. And she is awesome. She can be she can play a fancy, character. She looks great in, fancy clothing. She can be bitchy. She can be stuck up, and she looks great in spandex. And that's one of the things with Scarlet, the White Queen, Emma Frost. You got to get someone who is hot, like who's got a banging body, and she does, and she can act. And like I said, she can be badass. And also, I could buy her in a relationship with Armie Hammer as Cyclops if it ever gets to that. And last member of the Hellfire Club would be Jason Wingard, aka Mastermind. Which, remember, I had Mastermind appear in the second movie. He comes back. If you know Dark Phoenix, the reveal that he's manipulating her. So for Wingard, which is the fake version of himself, I have Robert Sheehan from Umbrella Academy. He played number 4. He played Klaus on number 4. He would be the facade, and you can get any character actor to play the actual old, gross, old, creepy man looking version of the actual Mastermind. But I would like that reveal to be in the movie. And his powers are somewhat similar. His powers are basically like what Mysterio was in Far From Home, but it's real. It's like mental as opposed to holograms, where he can make you see certain things. And in this, there's a device he gets from Emma Frost that is powerful enough to help him enhance his abilities to manipulate Jean Grey. Now, this could be it could be like a new Mind Stone. It could be a fragment of the Mind Stone that allows him to control the Phoenix's mind, help him manipulate the Phoenix's mind. So with that device, over time, the Phoenix Force in Jean, because Jean is still around and she still has the Phoenix in her, Jean has become more powerful and is becoming more careless with her abilities. An incident happens, and during that incident, the Phoenix Force gets out of control. And unknown to the team and Jean, she's being manipulated by Jason Wingard with the device from the Hellfire Club in order to control her so they can help take over the world, basically. And the new threat of the Phoenix causes the Avengers to get involved, and they're kind of like, yo, we got to do something about this chick. Somewhat like Civil War, but yeah, it's sort of like Civil War, but it's one team versus the other, and some of the members of the X-Men swap over to the Avengers because they're kind of like, yeah, this is getting a little crazy. This causes a rift between the two teams, and at some point they discover that she's being manipulated by the Hellfire Club, but it's too late because the Phoenix is now unhinged, and we do get the moment where she goes out in space and eats the sun, which inadvertently destroys a planet. I want that in the movie. It needs to happen. It is a very pivotal point in that comic. And well, she destroys not just a planet, she destroys the solar system. That's right. So Lilandra and other planetary leaders come together to bring Jean Grey on trial for destroying that particular sun, and that leads to of course, that leads to a battle on the moon, perhaps, or on some moon-like planet. And instead of having the Imperial Guard brought in, some of the other Avengers are brought in to kind of be the opposing side, and then you can have a big battle, somewhat like they did in Endgame, but it's the X-Men trying to protect Jean before she ultimately sacrifices herself to get rid of the evil Phoenix Force in her. So that is a loosely based idea of Dark Phoenix with the Avengers thrown in there. But they can do some. Hopefully, they can do something better than that. But that would be sort of my general idea of how I would try to handle the X-Men in the MCU, trying to hit some of those things we didn't see with those moments in the comics we love, but then also adding some new things as you would get with an MCU movie. But I also want to have those character, those like those character elements that we didn't get with the X-Men movies from Fox to be there too. And I know Feige's going to do his best to do that because he loves him some X-Men, and he's a true fan of this stuff. So those are my quick ideas of how I would handle or at least cast the X-Men in the MCU. If you like my ideas, let me know in the comments. If you don't, you think it's trash, let me know in the comments. Check out other videos on this channel. Don't forget to give this video a like if you like this video, and if you didn't like this video, also give it a like. Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more videos. Peace.
Finish this thought. I am a slave to
the booty.